Most people live their entire lives inside invisible walls they never question. Boundaries that were drawn not by nature but by culture, by tradition, by the quiet voice of conformity that tells them this is how far you can go and no further, and they accept it because questioning it feels uncomfortable, because breaking through feels dangerous. But the truth is that those walls are illusions, designed to keep the average safe and the exceptional restrained. And if you want to accomplish anything that truly matters, you must learn to ignore them, to see past them, and to treat limits not as permanent fixtures but as challenges begging to be dismantled. Because thinking beyond limits is not optional if your goal is to reshape the future, it is mandatory. And yet most people never allow themselves to even attempt it. They convince themselves that survival is enough, that incremental improvement is sufficient. But history shows us that progress only happens because someone dared to ignore the consensus and imagine something bigger, something absurd by the standards of the time, something like electric cars replacing gasoline when oil companies ruled the world, or rockets landing themselves when experts said it was impossible. And this mindset, this refusal to accept limits, is the seed of every revolution in human history. From the very beginning, when I was building my first companies, I realized that the default human mode is to operate inside assumptions that no one questions. For example, everyone assumed rockets had to be disposable because that's the way it had always been done, billions wasted on each launch, making space exploration ridiculously expensive. But if you step back and look at the problem from physics first principles, asking what materials cost, what engineering actually allows, you discover the truth. Rockets don't have to be disposable. They can be reusable just like airplanes, and suddenly what was once considered science fiction becomes engineering reality. But to get there, you first have to think differently. You have to question the sacred cows of your industry. You have to refuse to accept the idea that limits are permanent. The same is true in every domain, not just rockets or cars, because limits are never objective facts. They are agreements. Agreements passed down from teachers, from institutions, from peers who stopped dreaming too soon, and the tragedy is that most people inherit these agreements and never break them. They live lives of quiet compromise, always within reach of greatness, but never grabbing it because they tell themselves that the ceiling is too high, that they are not allowed to climb higher. But ask yourself this: who decides what you are allowed to do? Who writes the script for your future? Who enforces the rules of what is possible? The answer is no one, unless you let them. And the reason I speak so bluntly about this is because the greatest mistake a person can make is to underestimate their ability to redefine the game entirely. The truth is that breakthroughs happen not because people wait for permission, but because they dare to think in a way that others won't. They dare to see opportunity where everyone else sees impossibility, and that requires courage, yes, but also discipline, because the mind naturally resists change, it prefers safety, it prefers repetition, and that's why mediocrity feels so comfortable, because it doesn't hurt, it doesn't challenge. But comfort is the enemy of evolution, and if you want to evolve, you must first declare war on your own comfort. Thinking beyond limits doesn't start with resources, it doesn't start with connections, it starts with a decision to ask better questions, to break problems down into their simplest elements, and to challenge the assumption that just because something hasn't been done means it can't be done, because the laws of physics do not care about tradition, they don't bend to consensus, they simply are, and within them lies almost infinite room for creativity if you are willing to go there. Consider the mindset of those who built the impossible before us. The Wright brothers were bicycle mechanics, not aeronautical engineers, yet they decided that man could fly, and they thought beyond the ridicule, beyond the failed attempts, and eventually the world bent to their persistence, not the other way around. Or think of the early pioneers of electricity who were mocked as dreamers until entire cities lit up and the mockery stopped, and the pattern is always the same. First they laugh, then they resist, then they adopt, and then they forget they ever doubted. That is the life cycle of every limit once someone has the audacity to challenge it. But if you want to live that way, you must be prepared for the reality that most of the people around you will not understand, that they will try to project their own fears onto you, that they will call you reckless, unrealistic, even arrogant. But none of that matters, because the question you must always return to is this: do you want to live inside their limits or build your own? I chose the latter, and that choice has made all the difference. It is not about ego, it is about responsibility, because once you see that the limits are artificial, you cannot unsee it, and then you realize that your responsibility is to push, not just for yourself, but for humanity. Because if no one dares, the future stalls, and the problems we face remain unsolved. Whether it is climate change, interplanetary survival, artificial intelligence, or any of the existential challenges ahead, they will not be solved by playing within the lines. They will only be solved by people who refuse to accept the frame they were given, who redesign the game from scratch. That is why I tell you, thinking beyond limits is not a motivational slogan, it is survival. It is the only way to move from being a passive passenger of history to being an active builder of it. And yes, it will be hard, it will be lonely, but it will also be the only path worth taking, because the alternative is to live and die within boundaries someone else drew for you. And if you are listening to me now, I can promise you one thing. You were not born for that cage. You were born to break it, and breaking it starts here, with a decision. A simple but radical commitment to think bigger, to question deeper, and to refuse to bow to limits that never truly existed in the first place. The difference between dreaming and building is that one lives in imagination while the other reshapes reality. And if you want to change the world, you cannot stay in the realm of ideas forever, because ideas by themselves are cheap. Everyone has them. The marketplace is flooded with visions of what could be, but execution is scarce. Execution is rare. Execution is what separates those remembered from those forgotten. And the truth is that most people never cross that bridge because they wait. They wait for the right resources, the right moment, the perfect conditions. And in that waiting, years pass, opportunities die, momentum disappears, and they become trapped in the story of what they could have done instead of the reality of what they built. But builders do not wait, builders act, and they act not because conditions are perfect, but precisely because they are not. Because action itself is the forge that creates clarity, that reveals what must be fixed, that teaches what theory never can. And that is why progress is always born in motion, not in contemplation. When I started Tesla, people told me it was impossible, that the auto industry was too entrenched, that oil companies were too powerful, that no startup could compete with giants who had dominated for a century. But I knew something most people ignore. Physics does not care about tradition. Energy efficiency does not care about legacy business models. And once you understand that the old ways are inefficient, you realize there is no reason to keep them except fear. So we built anyway. We learned by doing. We made mistakes. We nearly died as a company more than once. But because we moved instead of waiting for permission, we created an entirely new market, and now electric cars are no longer fringe. They are the future. The same was true with SpaceX, because if you looked at the spreadsheets, at the probabilities, it was insane to think that a small group of engineers could do what NASA and massive aerospace companies with billions in funding had failed to do. But we did not let the numbers stop us. We moved, we built, we failed. Rockets exploded. The press mocked us. Experts predicted our collapse. And yet each failure was fuel, each setback a step forward, because we learned, we adapted, and eventually we succeeded. Not because we had the most resources, but because we had the most relentless execution. And that is the lesson you must carry into your own life. Execution beats hesitation every time. Ideas are fragile until they are hardened by action. And the reason so few people execute is because execution is messy, it is painful, it exposes weakness, it forces you to confront the gap between vision and reality. But that is where growth lives, not in the comfort of plans, but in the chaos of doing. And the faster you learn to embrace that chaos, the faster you will transform imagination into reality. Think about every great innovator you know. Edison did not stop at the idea of a light bulb. He tested thousands of filaments until one worked. Ford did not stop at the dream of an affordable car. He reimagined the entire manufacturing process to make it possible. Jobs did not stop at the vision of personal computers for the masses. He obsessed over design and usability until they became inevitable. None of them succeeded because they had a vision alone. They succeeded because they were relentless in execution, because they refused to quit when reality punched them in the face, and because they understood that action, not intention, is the real currency of progress. You must understand this. Execution is not glamorous. It does not happen in big moments on stage. It happens in the grind of long nights, in the debugging of endless code, in the rejection of investors, in the skepticism of peers, in the failures no one sees. But that is exactly why execution is powerful, because most people are not willing to endure it. And if you are willing, if you choose to keep moving when others stop, you separate yourself permanently from the crowd. People ask me often, how do you stay motivated through setbacks? And my answer is simple. I do not rely on motivation. I rely on standards. I rely on commitment. Because motivation comes and goes, but execution is built on discipline, on deciding that this is who I am, and this is what I do regardless of feelings. And when you operate from that place, you become unstoppable because your actions are no longer hostage to your moods. They are aligned with your mission. That is why I say over and over, stop waiting, stop planning forever, stop fantasizing, just start, because the act of starting is the most powerful force you have. It creates momentum, it forces clarity, it generates feedback, and it builds the habit of movement. And once movement becomes your identity, doubt loses its grip. Execution requires sacrifice. It requires trading comfort for growth, trading ease for progress, and trading immediate pleasure for long-term impact. But every sacrifice becomes fuel, every discomfort becomes armor. And eventually you stop seeing it as suffering, you start seeing it as the price of greatness. And once you accept that price, you stop hesitating, you stop overthinking, you move forward without apology. Ask yourself right now, what idea have you carried for years without execution? What vision have you postponed waiting for permission? And what would happen if instead of waiting another day, you acted today? Not perfectly, not completely, but decisively, because perfection is the enemy of execution, and the world does not need perfect, it needs progress, it needs momentum, it needs builders who are willing to bleed for their vision instead of just talk about it. Understand this truth. The graveyard is full of ideas that never became reality because their owners waited, and history does not remember those who almost built. It remembers those who executed. And the same will be true for you. You will not be judged by what you thought you might do, but by what you actually built, by the bridges you crossed, by the risks you took, by the results you forced into existence, through sheer will and relentless execution. So commit to this. Stop being a dreamer, become a builder. Stop waiting for perfect timing. Create the timing. Stop asking for certainty. Manufacture certainty through action. Because execution is not optional if you want to live a life that matters. It is the dividing line between the majority who settle and the minority who transform the world. And the choice is yours, right now, in this moment, not someday, not eventually, but today. Discipline is the multiplier of all progress, the invisible force that separates those who achieve extraordinary results from those who remain trapped in mediocrity. Because talent without discipline is wasted potential, vision without discipline is fantasy, and ambition without discipline is noise. And I want you to understand this with absolute clarity. Everything you dream of, everything you hope to build, everything you want to achieve, is not waiting on more resources, more luck, or more inspiration. It is waiting on discipline, the decision to do the work whether you feel like it or not, the decision to execute even when it is boring, painful, repetitive, and thankless, because that decision repeated over and over compounds into mastery, and mastery compounds into greatness. The reason most people fail is not because they lack intelligence, creativity, or opportunity. It is because they are addicted to comfort and allergic to discipline. They allow their feelings to dictate their actions. They work hard only when they feel motivated, and the moment discomfort rises, they retreat. But the truth is that discomfort is the doorway to growth, and discipline is the key that unlocks it. And once you embrace that reality, you will stop asking for things to get easier and start demanding that you get stronger. When I think about building Tesla, SpaceX, or any other venture, it was never about one big heroic moment. It was thousands of small disciplined actions stacked day after day, often with no applause, no recognition, and no guarantee of success. But that is the essence of discipline. It is doing what must be done when no one is watching, when the outcome is uncertain, when the reward is invisible, because discipline is not about the immediate, it is about the inevitable. And if you are relentless with discipline, results eventually have no choice but to show up. People often ask me, how do you stay so driven? And my answer is that drive is not enough. Feelings are not enough, because feelings change. They rise and fall with sleep, stress, weather, and circumstance. But discipline is stable. Discipline does not care if you are tired, if you are afraid, if you are uninspired. It demands only that you show up and do the work. And that is why discipline is more valuable than motivation, because motivation may start the engine, but only discipline keeps it running until the finish line. Understand this, discipline is freedom, because without discipline you are a slave to your moods, to your impulses, to your fears, but with discipline you command yourself, you control your time, you bend your habits to serve your purpose instead of sabotaging it, and that control creates freedom, the freedom to build, to create, to expand without being dragged down by the weakness of hesitation or the chaos of inconsistency. Look at history. Every innovator, every leader, Every builder who transformed the world did so not by waiting for inspiration, but by practicing discipline. Edison did not discover the light bulb because he was inspired 10,000 times. He discovered it because he tested 10,000 times with discipline. Ford did not revolutionize manufacturing because he had one good idea. He revolutionized it because he relentlessly disciplined himself to refine, simplify, and repeat until it worked. Jobs did not design the iPhone in a burst of genius. He disciplined his team to iterate endlessly until perfection was achieved. And you must realize you are no different. Your results will not come from a single flash of brilliance. They will come from disciplined execution sustained over years. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not Instagram worthy most of the time. It is waking up early. It is doing the hard work when no one thanks you. It is repeating the fundamentals until they are automatic. It is choosing long-term vision over short-term pleasure. It is turning off distractions. It is saying no when everyone else says yes. And it is holding yourself to a standard so high that your old self cannot survive it. And if you commit to this kind of discipline, your life will transform because discipline compounds faster than almost anything else. Every small disciplined action creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence creates more disciplined action. And soon you are living in a feedback loop of growth that is unstoppable. The danger is that most people underestimate discipline because it feels small. They think skipping one workout, one reading session, 1 hour of focus does not matter. But the truth is that everything compounds, both discipline and its absence. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you reinforce the identity of a builder. And every time you break your word to yourself, you reinforce the identity of a quitter. And over time, those identities create entirely different lives, one destined for greatness, the other destined for regret, and the choice is made not once, but daily, in the smallest of decisions that seem invisible at the moment, but build mountains over decades. So if you want to know how to change your life, stop looking for massive dramatic changes, start mastering the small disciplines, wake up on time, keep your promises, do the work whether or not you feel like it, build consistency in the fundamentals, and as those disciplines stack, they will open doors you once thought were locked forever. Because the world respects discipline, the market rewards discipline, and your own mind trusts you when you live with discipline. Do not misunderstand me. Discipline is not easy. It will hurt. It will feel like sacrifice. It will demand that you fight your old self daily, but that fight is the forge where the new you is created, and you cannot escape it. You cannot delegate it. You cannot outsource it. You must face it head on, and if you refuse to flinch, you will come out of it transformed, stronger, sharper, and ready to build things you once thought impossible. Discipline will not make your life easier. It will make you better. It will not eliminate problems. It will make you capable of solving bigger ones. It will not silence fear, but it will give you the courage to act despite fear. And in the end, that is all greatness is disciplined courage repeated until it becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, you are unstoppable, because then discipline is no longer something you do, it is who you are. Vision without execution is hallucination, and execution without vision is wasted energy. But when you combine the two with relentless clarity of purpose, you create momentum so powerful that it bends reality. And this is what I want you to understand. Clarity of vision is not a luxury, it is the foundation of all greatness. Because without clarity, your effort is scattered, your time is diluted, your actions are unfocused. But with clarity, your energy is concentrated like a laser, and concentrated energy moves mountains, disrupts industries, and changes lives. And the mistake most people make is they wait for clarity to arrive as if it is some mystical event. But clarity is not discovered. It is created. It is a decision, a declaration that this is who I am. This is what I am building. This is where I am going. And once you make that declaration, everything else starts to align because your subconscious finally has a blueprint to follow, and your daily actions finally have direction, and people around you can finally see what you stand for instead of guessing. Think about it this way. If you do not decide your vision, someone else will decide it for you. Your boss, society, your environment, your fears. They will hand you a script, and you will live inside someone else's story. But when you write your own vision and commit to it with discipline, you step into authorship of your life. You stop drifting. You stop being reactive. And you start becoming the architect of your destiny. And this is the first law of clarity. Decide your vision before the world decides it for you. Look at the people who changed the trajectory of history. They were not the most talented or even the most resourced. They were the most decisive about their vision. Thomas Edison did not stumble into inventing the light bulb. He had clarity that he would illuminate the world, and he acted with ruthless focus until it was done. Henry Ford was not the most skilled engineer, but he had clarity that he would build a car for the common man, and he bent his entire company around that mission until it became inevitable. SpaceX was not born because the world was asking for private rockets. It was born because I had clarity that humanity must become multiplanetary, and that clarity pulled resources, talent, and persistence into alignment until rockets flew, and Tesla was not inevitable in a world dominated by oil. It was clarity that sustainable energy was non-negotiable that fueled the fight through near bankruptcy and doubt until the vision became reality. This is what clarity does. It anchors you when failure screams. It sharpens you when distractions tempt. It carries you when motivation dies. And if you do not have clarity, you will quit at the first sign of resistance because without a why, the how feels unbearable. But when your why is unshakable, the how becomes irrelevant. You will crawl, bleed, fight, and innovate because the mission matters more than the discomfort. The second law of clarity is focus, because once you decide your vision, you must defend it against dilution. Most people fail not because they aimed too high and missed, but because they aimed at everything and hit nothing. They spread their energy across dozens of half-hearted pursuits, and in doing so, they never create leverage. But the great ones simplified, they eliminated, they obsessed over one mission until it bent. Ford said, "We will stop building all other cars and only build the Model T." That decision of ruthless focus birthed a revolution in transportation. Edison narrowed his energy on electricity when others were distracted by endless experiments. Jobs killed dozens of projects inside Apple to focus on the iPhone. And in my own journey, the hardest decisions were not about what to start, but about what to kill, what to say no to, what to starve so that the vision could live. And you must do the same, because a diluted life creates diluted results, but a focused life creates leverage, and leverage changes everything. The third law of clarity is alignment, because once you know your vision and focus on it, you must align every part of your life to support it. Your habits, your time, your circle, your words, your standards, they must all serve the mission. Because if you say you want to build greatness, but your habits belong to mediocrity, you are lying to yourself. And life does not reward lies, it rewards alignment. And alignment means you stop entertaining relationships that drain you, you stop indulging habits that weaken you, you stop wasting time on distractions that entertain you but do not move you forward. Alignment is ruthless. Alignment is uncomfortable. Alignment means sacrificing what is easy for what is necessary. But when your life is aligned, every ounce of energy you spend multiplies, and momentum compounds faster than you can imagine. The fourth law of clarity is iteration, because vision is not static. It evolves as you evolve, it sharpens as you execute. And the mistake most people make is waiting for the perfect vision before they move. But clarity is not found in stillness. It is forged in motion. You do not think your way into perfect clarity. You act your way into it. You start with a direction. You move, you learn, you adapt, and each iteration sharpens your vision until it cuts through steel. This is why the phrase fail fast is so powerful, because every failure is an iteration, every setback is a data point, and every lesson clarifies the path. But only if you are moving, only if you are building, only if you are willing to look stupid, wrong, and misunderstood in the process. And this is why perfectionists rarely win, because they wait for certainty before they act. But the greats act before certainty and create it on the way. The fifth law of clarity is communication, because a vision not spoken dies in silence. It must be shared, declared, and reinforced until it becomes law inside you and contagious outside you. This is not about hype, it is about repetition. The same way Edison repeated his belief in electricity, the same way Ford repeated his belief in affordable cars, the same way Lincoln repeated his belief in unity, you must speak your vision daily, not to seek applause, but to program your subconscious and anchor your identity, because the words you speak to yourself shape the actions you take, and the actions you take shape the world you create. And if your words are vague, your world will be vague. But if your words are sharp, your world will be sharp. Let me be clear. Clarity is not a gift you are given. It is a standard you enforce. It is a muscle you train. It is a war you fight daily against doubt, distraction, and dilution. And if you do not enforce it, you will default to confusion. And confusion is the breeding ground of mediocrity. But if you enforce it, you will create certainty. And certainty is magnetic. It attracts people, resources, and opportunities. And this is why the greatest gift you can give yourself and the world is clarity. Clarity of who you are, what you stand for, and what you are building. Because in a world addicted to noise, the man with clarity becomes a leader. The man with clarity bends reality, And the man with clarity cannot be stopped because his energy is not wasted on debate, it is concentrated on creation. So decide your vision, focus on it ruthlessly, align your life to support it, iterate until it sharpens, communicate until it becomes law, and watch as the fog of doubt lifts, the distractions fade, and the path to greatness reveals itself, not because it was hidden, but because you finally stopped drifting and started building with clarity. Discipline is the bridge between intention and reality, the factor that separates those who dream from those who build. And if you look closely at the lives of people who have achieved anything that lasted, anything that bent industries, nations, or even entire civilizations, you will see that discipline was always the backbone, because talent without discipline is wasted, intelligence without discipline is paralyzed, and vision without discipline is nothing more than a hallucination. So, what I want you to understand is that discipline is not about punishment, it is about power. It is not about restriction, it is about freedom. Freedom from the chaos of impulse, freedom from the gravity of laziness, freedom from the endless loop of starting and stopping that keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. And the irony is that most people reject discipline because they think it is painful, they think it is limiting, but the real pain comes from a lack of discipline. The real limitation is living a life that never rises beyond average. The real suffering is looking back and realizing you had the potential for greatness, but you squandered it because you let your feelings dictate your future. And this is why I say discipline is not negotiable. It is the foundation, the daily decision that reinforces your identity, the non-negotiable standard that turns chaos into order, dreams into plans, and potential into results. Look at the men who reshaped history. Henry Ford was not the most educated man, but he had the discipline to keep pushing his engineers day after day to produce what they called impossible, an 8-cylinder engine in one block. And because he demanded discipline from himself and from his team, the impossible became inevitable. Thomas Edison was not the most brilliant inventor in theory, but he had the discipline to fail more than 10,000 times in pursuit of the light bulb, and his discipline turned failure into fuel. Because each failed attempt was not an end, it was information. And because he refused to stop, he made the world glow. And when you look at modern innovation, whether it is SpaceX, Tesla, or Neuralink, what you are seeing is not luck or genius alone. You are seeing the discipline to keep going when rockets explode, when factories struggle, when the world doubts. And it is that discipline, day after day, to execute, to refine, to learn, to adjust, that turns audacity into reality. The first law of discipline is consistency, because without consistency, nothing compounds, and greatness is built not in one day but in thousands of days, each one stacked on the last, each one boring to the outside world but transformative to the man who endures. And this is why discipline must be daily, not when you feel like it, not when it is convenient, not when motivation shows up, but every single day, because motivation is fragile, it is emotional, it disappears when life gets hard, but discipline is structural. It is identity. It is the commitment that says whether I feel like it or not, I will execute. And over time, consistency transforms identity, and identity transforms destiny. The second law of discipline is standards, because discipline without high standards is still mediocrity. You must raise the bar beyond what the average man is willing to tolerate. You must demand from yourself precision, focus, and excellence in the small details as well as the large, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And if you allow yourself to be sloppy in small matters, you will inevitably fail in larger ones. But when you enforce high standards across your life, your environment, your habits, your words, and your work, you create a culture of excellence within yourself. And excellence compounds just like mediocrity does, except excellence compounds upward, while mediocrity compounds downward, and over time the gap between you and the average becomes impossible to ignore. The third law of discipline is sacrifice, because every choice has a cost, and the reason most people fail is not because they don't know what to do, it is because they are unwilling to pay the price. But discipline requires sacrifice, sacrifice of comfort, sacrifice of distraction, sacrifice of the easy path that leads nowhere. And the truth is that greatness demands this sacrifice. And if you are unwilling to sacrifice, you are unwilling to succeed. But when you embrace sacrifice as the toll you pay for evolution, you stop resenting it, you start respecting it, because sacrifice is not loss, it is investment, and the return on that investment is freedom, growth, and mastery. The fourth law of discipline is resilience, because discipline is not proven in the good days, it is proven in the hard ones. Anyone can be disciplined when things are easy, but real discipline is tested when you are tired, when you are failing, when you feel like nothing is working, And that is where most people quit. But the disciplined man continues. He does not collapse when resistance shows up. He sharpens himself in the resistance. He welcomes the weight because he knows strength is forged in struggle. And this is what separates the few from the many. The many complain when it gets hard. The few get stronger. And that resilience comes only from discipline. The fifth law of discipline is focus, because discipline is not just about doing more. It is about doing the right things consistently. It is about eliminating distractions, saying no to what does not matter, refusing to waste time on what does not serve the mission, and in a world full of noise, the man with focus becomes unstoppable, because his energy is not scattered across 1,000 meaningless tasks. It is concentrated on the handful of actions that actually move the needle, and that is how revolutions are built. Not by doing everything, but by doing the right things with relentless discipline until they bend reality. The sixth law of discipline is accountability, because without accountability, discipline decays. It is easy to lie to yourself, easy to excuse your failures, easy to lower your standards when no one is watching, but accountability makes weakness impossible. Accountability forces you to confront the gap between what you said and what you did. Accountability is the mirror that never lies, and whether that accountability comes from mentors, peers, or your own brutal honesty, you must enforce it daily, because the man who hides from accountability hides from growth. Let me make this clear. Discipline is not an event, it is a lifestyle. It is not something you practice for a season, it is something you install into your identity. It is the architecture of your day, the non-negotiables that you enforce, even when no one notices, even when no one applauds, because the reward is not external validation, the reward is transformation. The reward is becoming the man who keeps his word to himself, the man whose actions align with his vision, the man whose life is proof that discipline is divine. And if you are still doubting, let me say this. The cost of discipline is pain, yes, but the cost of no discipline is regret, and regret is far heavier than any pain you will endure through discipline. Regret is permanent. Regret is unfixable. Regret is the knowledge that you could have been more but chose less, and that is the ultimate failure, and that is why you must choose discipline now, because your future self is watching, your future self is waiting, and he will either thank you for your discipline or curse you for your weakness, and the choice is yours, daily, hourly, moment by moment, to enforce the standards that will take you from who you are to who you are meant to become. Vision without execution is hallucination, but execution without vision is slavery, and the reason so many people feel trapped, tired, and uninspired in their work is not because they lack energy or intelligence, but because they lack vision. They lack the bigger picture that gives meaning to their actions, because when you have vision, every sacrifice has context, every struggle has purpose, every failure is reframed as progress. But when you lack vision, even success feels empty because you don't know where you are going, and this is why vision is non-negotiable. It is not some poetic dream, it is a structural requirement for greatness. And if you look at every man who has built something beyond himself, who has left a legacy that outlived his own life, you will see that vision was the first spark, and then discipline, execution, and resilience built around it. Henry Ford did not just want to make cars. His vision was to democratize transportation, to give the common man freedom of movement. And that vision guided every choice, every factory design, every argument with his board, every risk he took. Because the vision was bigger than profit, it was purpose. Thomas Edison did not just want to invent a bulb. His vision was to illuminate the world, to remove darkness from human life. And that vision carried him through 10,000 failed attempts. Abraham Lincoln did not just want to govern. His vision was unity and freedom, and that vision gave him the strength to endure ridicule, war, and despair. Elon Musk does not just want to build rockets. His vision is to make life multiplanetary, to secure the survival of humanity, and that is why failure does not stop him. Vision makes failure tolerable because it reframes the context. And now the question is not, do you have energy or intelligence, but do you have vision? Do you know why you are doing what you are doing? Can you articulate it in one sentence that drives everything else? Because without vision, discipline becomes drudgery, sacrifice becomes suffering, and execution becomes slavery. But with vision, discipline becomes devotion, sacrifice becomes investment, execution becomes creation. And this is what separates the builders from the followers, the leaders from the lost. The first law of vision is clarity. You cannot have a vague idea. You must be able to describe it with sharpness, with precision, because if your vision is foggy, your execution will be chaotic. But if your vision is clear, your execution will be inevitable. Clarity means knowing what you want, why you want it, and how it connects to something larger than yourself. And the irony is that clarity does not come from waiting for inspiration. It comes from making decisions, from choosing, from saying yes to one thing and no to 1,000 others. And once you decide, once you carve that vision in stone, your mind begins to align, your actions begin to align, your habits begin to align, and suddenly what looked impossible begins to bend. The second law of vision is scale, because if your vision is only about you, it will die with you. But if your vision includes others, if it touches humanity, if it solves a real problem, then it grows beyond your lifespan. And this is why men like Carnegie, Ford, Edison, and Musk are remembered, because their visions weren't selfish, they weren't small, they weren't about looking good or being comfortable. They were about transformation, about rewriting the rules of what was possible. And if your vision is not scaring you, stretching you, challenging you, it is too small, because the energy of vision comes from scale, from the sense that you are part of something larger than yourself, that you are contributing to the evolution of humanity, and that scale pulls you through the darkest days. The third law of vision is obsession, because vision that is not reinforced daily will fade. The world will try to kill it with doubt, distraction, and delay. So you must guard it, feed it, speak it, write it, live it until it becomes your second nature, until it becomes your identity, until people associate your name with your vision. Ford was the man of the car, Edison was the man of the light, Musk is the man of the rocket. Because they did not allow themselves to flirt with other identities, they obsessed, and that obsession gave their vision gravity. It pulled resources, people, and opportunities into their orbit, because the world is drawn to the man who is certain, to the man who repeats his vision until it becomes inevitable. The fourth law of vision is resilience, because every great vision will be attacked, doubted, mocked, and resisted, and most people abandon their vision the moment it faces opposition. But the man with resilience understands that opposition is the toll you pay for changing the world. Edison was mocked, Ford was ridiculed, Musk is attacked daily, Lincoln was hated by half his country, but their vision outlasted the noise, because they knew resilience was the filter that separates the serious from the casual, the committed from the curious. And if you are not willing to endure ridicule, you are not serious about your vision, because vision is not proven in the good days, it is proven in the storms. The fifth law of vision is embodiment, because vision cannot just be words, it must be lived, it must be demonstrated in how you act, how you decide, how you speak, how you carry yourself. You must embody the future before it arrives. You must walk like the man you are becoming, not the man you used to be. And this embodiment is what convinces others, because people do not follow words, they follow presence, they follow certainty, they follow a man who clearly embodies what he says. And this is how vision becomes contagious, how it spreads, how it recruits allies and resources without begging, because when you embody your vision, you give others permission to believe in it too. The sixth law of vision is alignment, because vision without alignment is fantasy. You cannot say you want to change the world and then waste your days on meaningless distractions. You cannot say you want to build something eternal and then spend your nights indulging in temporary pleasures. Your actions, your environment, your circle, your habits must align with your vision, and anything that doesn't serve it must be eliminated, because the friction between your words and your actions will destroy your credibility, but the alignment between your words and your actions will make you unstoppable, because every part of you is pushing in the same direction. The seventh law of vision is urgency, because vision without urgency is procrastination. You cannot keep saying one day, someday, maybe later, because later is the language of mediocrity. The truth is there is no perfect moment, no ideal conditions, no guaranteed safety. There is only now, and urgency means you act today, you move today, you make progress today, even if it is small. Because momentum builds and momentum compounds, and the man who moves now will always beat the man who waits for later, because later never comes, and that is why urgency is sacred. It keeps vision alive. And the final law of vision is evolution, because your vision must grow as you grow. It must expand, deepen, and adapt, or else it will become outdated, irrelevant, and small again. And the danger is that many men achieve their first vision and then stop. They plateau. They become prisoners of their past success. But the greats evolve. Ford didn't stop with one car. Edison didn't stop with one invention. Musk doesn't stop with one company. They keep evolving, expanding the vision to match the man they are becoming. And this is why they never stagnate, why they keep rising, because they understand that vision is alive, and like any living thing, it must grow or it will die. So I say this to you with absolute clarity. Vision is not optional. It is not decoration. It is destiny. And the man without vision is a slave to circumstance. But the man with vision becomes the architect of the future. He bends reality around him. He redefines what is possible, and he leaves behind a legacy that no one can erase. And if you are serious about your life, if you are serious about evolution, then you must define your vision, clarify it, scale it, obsess over it, protect it, embody it, align it, enforce urgency, and evolve it. Because the world does not need another man drifting. The world needs a builder, a leader, a creator, and that man is you if you decide it. And if you commit to it daily until your vision becomes inevitable, undeniable, and unshakable. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you must become. And without it, every vision collapses into fantasy. Every plan dissolves into procrastination. Every dream fades into regret. Because discipline is not just about waking up early or keeping a schedule. It is about building a standard so unshakable that even when emotions scream, even when fatigue whispers, even when fear begs you to stop, you continue, you execute, you move forward. And the reason most men never achieve greatness is not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack discipline. They are slaves to their moods. They work when they feel motivated. They pause when they feel tired. They take action when they feel confident. But the man of discipline acts regardless of feeling. He acts because he decided, and that decision is law. And when decision becomes law, the world bends. Because the world respects consistency, the world respects the man who follows through. And the world cannot ignore the one who executes daily, relentlessly, without excuse. And this is why discipline is freedom, because without it you are trapped in the cycle of hesitation, of inconsistency, of starting and never finishing. But with it you become free to build, free to lead, free to rise above the chaos of emotion, because your life is guided by standards, not moods. Discipline begins with small things, the kind of things most men dismiss as trivial, but the small becomes the structure of the great. The way you wake up, the way you treat your body, the way you organize your day, these are not casual. They are the training ground for greatness. Because if you cannot govern the little, you cannot govern the large. If you cannot control your mornings, you will not control your empire. If you cannot master your impulses, you will not master your destiny. And this is why the greats were ruthless with discipline. Ford insisted on streamlined production and routine. Edison worked long nights with absolute consistency. Carnegie obsessed over efficiency and habit. Musk holds himself to standards that seem impossible, because they understood that discipline was not optional. It was the price of building something beyond themselves. But discipline is not just routine, it is resilience, because discipline means doing the work not once, not when conditions are perfect, but again and again, especially when conditions are terrible, when results don't show, when the world laughs, when failure repeats. Because discipline is the ability to show up even when nothing seems to move, and that showing up creates momentum, that momentum compounds, and eventually that compounding breaks through walls, and the world calls it genius, luck, or destiny. But it was just discipline, just persistence, just a man refusing to quit when everything else told him to. And this is why Edison, after 10,000 failures, could smile and say he had not failed. He had simply found ways that did not work. That is discipline, the ability to keep moving with identity rooted not in emotion, but in decision. Discipline is also sacrifice, because to build one thing you must give up another. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot chase two visions. You must choose. And then you must cut away everything that contradicts that choice. Because every distraction you indulge, every excuse you tolerate, every indulgence you allow, is a vote for mediocrity. And mediocrity is not neutral. It is a slow death. And this is why discipline demands sacrifice. It demands that you say no to comfort, no to distraction, no to the easy path, not because those things are evil, but because they steal energy, they dilute focus, they weaken resolve. And the man of discipline knows that his vision is worth more than the temporary pleasures of laziness. So he sacrifices, and those sacrifices compound into strength, into momentum, into greatness. Discipline is identity, because a man who is disciplined is not just someone who does certain things. He is someone who has become something. He is the man who keeps his word, the man who moves regardless, the man whose body, mind, and environment all know the law of his standards. And because identity drives behavior, once discipline becomes identity, it becomes automatic, it becomes instinct, and that is the goal. To no longer argue with yourself every day, to no longer negotiate with weakness, to no longer debate with delay, but to move automatically, decisively, consistently, because you are that man now, the man who acts without excuse. Discipline must be reinforced daily, because just like vision, it is fragile when neglected. You cannot build discipline once and keep it forever. You must guard it, practice it, renew it, because the old self waits, the weaker version of you waits. He wants to return, he wants to reclaim his throne, and if you let your discipline slip, he will return. So you must renew it every day, with rituals, with repetition, with reminders. You must speak it, write it, embody it. You must make it so deeply ingrained in your schedule that it becomes unshakable. And when you fall, because you will, discipline means you rise immediately, without drama, without self-pity. You return to the standard, because discipline is not perfection. It is persistence, and persistence is more powerful than perfection. Discipline is not glamorous. It will not always be celebrated. It will not always be visible. Most of it happens in silence, in solitude, in the hours when no one is watching, when there is no applause, when there is no recognition, and that is why so few people keep it, but that is also why it is so powerful, because the man who can discipline himself in the dark will shine in the light, because the foundation was built in silence, and when results come, they will seem sudden, dramatic, unstoppable, but you will know it was discipline, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice, that built the empire, that built the man. And let me tell you this clearly. Discipline is not punishment. It is liberation. It is not about restricting yourself. It is about unleashing yourself, because without discipline, you are a slave to impulse, to mood, to distraction. But with discipline, you are free to rise above them, to create with focus, to live with clarity, to lead with power. And that is why discipline is the highest form of self-respect, because it says, I value my vision more than my feelings. I value my purpose more than my comfort. I value my future more than my excuses. And when you live like this, the world cannot ignore you, because results follow discipline the way dawn follows night, inevitably, relentlessly, undeniably. So I tell you now, stop waiting for motivation, stop negotiating with weakness, stop living as if discipline is optional. It is the foundation, it is the core, it is the bridge between your present and your future. And if you decide today, not tomorrow, not later, but today, that discipline is who you are, then everything changes. Your vision gains gravity, your actions gain consistency, your identity gains power, and your destiny gains inevitability, because the man of discipline cannot be broken, cannot be delayed, cannot be denied. He may fall, but he rises. He may struggle, but he persists. He may be doubted, but he proves. And in the end, he wins, not because he was lucky, not because he was gifted, but because he was disciplined. Legacy is not something you stumble into. It is something you design, something you build, something you forge with relentless intention and uncompromising discipline. And the truth most people refuse to face is that they are building a legacy whether they know it or not. Every action, every habit, every decision is writing the story that others will tell when you are gone. The only question is whether that story will be one of wasted potential or realized greatness. And legacy is not measured in money or possessions. It is measured in impact, in the lives you touch, in the ideas you launch, in the problems you solve, in the way your name echoes long after your voice is silent. Because real legacy is not about fame, it is about contribution, and contribution requires courage. It requires the willingness to stand alone, to be misunderstood, to be criticized, because you chose to move forward when others chose comfort. And that is why legacy is the highest responsibility of all. It is the burden of knowing that your life is not just about you, it is about those who will come after you, those who will build on what you leave, those who will either rise because you paved the way or remain stuck because you left them nothing. To build legacy, you must first kill the illusion of permanence, because the lie that you have infinite time is what keeps most people small. They believe they can wait, they can delay, they can push their greatness into the future. But tomorrow is not promised. And the man who understands this lives differently. He does not waste hours on meaningless distractions. He does not waste years on paths that lead nowhere. He does not tolerate mediocrity in himself because he knows that every day is a brick, and if he does not place it with intention, the wall of his legacy will collapse. So legacy begins with urgency, with the ruthless prioritization of what matters, with the courage to say no to what steals time and yes to what multiplies it. Legacy is clarity. It is asking every morning not what do I feel like doing, but what will echo when I am gone. And this is not dramatic, it is practical, because the businesses you build, the systems you design, the habits you install, These are the architecture of your influence. They will outlast your flesh, they will outlast your voice, and the great ones understood this. Musk did not launch SpaceX to be admired. He did it to expand human life beyond Earth. Ford did not build cars just to sell them. He built systems that would move entire civilizations. Edison did not invent light for applause. He did it to transform nights into days for billions. These men thought in terms of centuries, not weekends, and that is why their names endure, because they built legacy, not convenience. Legacy requires that you think beyond self, because if your vision stops with your comfort, with your profit, with your recognition, it will die when you do. But if your vision is bigger than you, if it seeks to solve problems that outlive you, then your legacy becomes inevitable, because the world is always hungry for solutions. And if you provide them at scale, your name is etched into the fabric of progress. And this is why I tell you to lift your eyes from survival to contribution. Stop asking, how can I win today? And start asking, how can I change tomorrow? Stop asking, how can I be remembered? And start asking, how can I serve in a way so massive that remembrance is automatic? Because legacy is the byproduct of service at scale, and service at scale is the byproduct of vision married to discipline. Legacy is built in silence, before it is revealed in noise. It is the long nights when no one is watching, the countless failures when no one is clapping, the endless repetitions when no one cares. It is forged in solitude and revealed in history, and that is why so few create it, because they want recognition now, they want applause now, they want validation now, but legacy is not built now. It is built daily, and revealed later. It is built by the man who is willing to be ignored, to be doubted, to be unseen, because he knows that results do not need validation, they need time, and time will always expose the difference between the man who sought applause and the man who sought impact. Legacy is leadership, and leadership is not management, it is not position, it is not title. Leadership is influence rooted in integrity. It is the ability to embody a standard so relentlessly that others are forced to rise just by being around you. It is the ability to walk so clearly in vision that others feel safe to follow. It is the willingness to sacrifice first, to risk first, to move first, because you know that the weight of progress must be carried by someone, and you choose to be that someone. And when you live like this, when you lead like this, your very existence becomes a blueprint for others, and that blueprint is your legacy. Legacy is not accidental. It is engineered, and engineering requires design. You must decide what you want to be remembered for. You must decide what problem your name will be attached to. You must decide what future your work will unlock. Because if you do not decide, the world will decide for you, and the world does not care. The world will reduce you to noise, to another name lost in the blur of time. And that is why decision is the foundation of legacy. Decide now, not later, what you will build, what you will sacrifice, what you will give, and then let every action align with that decision, because alignment is power, and power creates permanence. Legacy is not comfort, it is cost. It will cost you your ease, it will cost you your approval, it will cost you your lesser ambitions, but what you gain is immortality of influence, because men die but ideas live, bodies fall but systems stand, names fade but legacies echo. And if you choose this path, you must accept that it is not easy, it is not soft, it is not casual, it is hard, it is violent, it is daily death to laziness, to distraction, to mediocrity, but it is also daily resurrection into power, into clarity, into immortality, because every day you live aligned to legacy, you are carving your name into eternity. And here is the final truth. Legacy is not built someday. It is built now, in this decision, in this moment, in this breath. It is not something you chase at the end of life. It is something you practice at the beginning of every day. So ask yourself now, if today was the last day, what would remain? What would they say? What systems would stand? What problems would still be solved? What echo would still be heard? And if the answer is nothing, then begin. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but now, because legacy cannot wait. The world cannot wait, and your higher self cannot wait. He is watching, he is demanding, he is whispering that you were not born to pass quietly. You were born to blaze, to carve, to design, to disrupt, to leave behind not ashes, but architecture, not whispers, but thunder, not mediocrity, but magnitude. And that is your duty, your responsibility, your destiny. So build it, brick by brick, day by day, standard by standard, until the man you were is unrecognizable, and the man you've become is undeniable. And when the final breath leaves your lungs, you will not fear death because you will already have built something that will outlive you. something greater than comfort, greater than survival, greater than self, something eternal, and that something is your legacy.